right, and we are back. Another episode of PB Betting, episode 13. Already mid-November here as we're coming to a close of the regular season in just a few weeks. Mr. Paisley, great to be back. How are we doing this week?
Yeah, doing good, Case. Can't believe we're already into November here. Only have a couple weeks left, so gotta take them while we can here. Not a great slate this upcoming Saturday, but again, we gotta be thankful we have college football on the docket. But okay week last week. We'll get into some of our picks, and then we'll preview some at the end of the show. But just another tough and struggling week, but just got to keep chipping away here.
And if you are tuning in, please let us know, retweet our stuff, give us a comment, let us know your thoughts here as we move into the final few weeks if we want to keep moving forward through the playoffs era, the playoffs coming up in just about a month. So anyway, we'll dive right into it. Mr. Paisley, looks like 500 for you, and then myself just below, well, a little bit below 500 there at 4-8. Not a great week to say the least. As a page, you were able to maintain that 50% there on the picks. Through 12 weeks, we're still above 500 just by a couple of games, literally 149 wins and 147 losses. So if you're playing your units right and you're not weighing things too heavy and you're sticking to the plan here, you really should be ahead or just slightly back, depending on how you look at it. Our locks, which we started out pretty hot, I think we were like 6 or 7-0. We've kind of struggled since then. Since the late second half of the season, we've kind of evened out, and literally now 11-11, also 50% through 12 weeks. My lock did not hit Indiana, which we'll get into. It looked like the first quarter they could, and then I don't know what happened in that game. I got a couple nice ones that I felt good about, Alabama and Penn State in that group, but other than that, I just kind of missed on everything. From Georgia there, I like them. They lost outright to the Oregon, and it just wasn't great for me.
Yeah, I think it's funny how betting works itself out. We started off red hot the locks, and you kind of knew some regression was just going to have to happen. It's hard to stay 80, 90%, and then if you're having a couple bad weeks, you should hopefully turn around, hopefully have some good weeks. So yeah, my slate was just it was like just 50-50 all day. At the noon, at 3:30, at the night slate was hitting a couple, losing a couple. My lock on North Texas, which we probably won't cover, but that was a crazy game that North Texas only scored 3 points. They got 0 points twice when they got to the Army 2 and 6 yard line. It came away with 0 points.
Wow.
Took the field goal a third time, and then they had 2 interceptions in the end zone. So just a crazy game. They only had like 6 offensive possessions because Army had a 14-minute possession in the third quarter, I think it was. So
you did see that.
A wild game. I could have thought they could have just got that cover. They were going in for the back door. And that's when they threw their second pick with like 2 minutes left. So just a tough one. Then my other nice play, I think we broke down, it was a Georgia Ole Miss under. I think that one was a nice cash. The weather helped out a little bit, but the Georgia offense, like we called, just sputtering a little bit, not looking great. So we'll get to them and break them down against Tennessee. But yeah, a couple nice ones. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, got a nice blowout victory against the lifeless Florida State. But so not bad.
Yeah, Notre Dame's been pretty good ever since that early loss to Northern Illinois. So we'll see if that continues for them. Okay, well, might as well jump right into the recap more on a positive note, Mr. Paisley. Miami finally losing. It's been inevitable at this point. Every game, they've just been kind of scraping away. Some things have been going the right way for them. Not this time. Finally, they could not get it done. They could not close it out against Georgia Tech in a slow game, lower scoring game. I don't know what about Miami. They're still in the driver's seat here, the ACC. They're still in the top rank. They still have everything in front of them. Not sure they're really deserving of that. So they will be there at the end. I'm sure they'll probably have a shot at it in the ACC championship to get in. But the way it's shaping up, and this is a bigger picture thing about the ACC and the Big 12, about how there's a shot they could really only get like one team in each conference. But Miami could not close it out. Really a bad game for them. A game they really needed, because at this point now the margin of error for them is really minuscule. Can't lose again, and they gotta win the ACC essentially to get in, I think, at this point. What'd you see in this one?
Yeah, and this was kind of similar to their games they've had in the past against Cal and Louisville and some of these other close calls. And it's just you're playing a dicey game when you get these close games right down to the wire every week. You know, it's hard to win those outright, just like we are talking about the betting, like it kind of works itself out. So it was looking like Miami was going to come back. They got a touchdown, got a 3-and-out, got the ball back with like 3 minutes left. They only needed a touchdown to go up in the game. And then Georgia Tech got a nice strip sack from behind. Cam Ward was just he's just a little too loose in the pocket. Like he was just waiting for like 15 seconds. Like it was like Caleb Williams on USC last year, like on steroids. Like he was trying to buy like 20 seconds time, and it was just caught up with them. And he had the ball a little low. Georgia Tech guy came, and really nice win for Georgia Tech. It was cool. Their game plan, kind of similar to the Vanderbilt game plan, where they're just really running the ball. They did not really have an element of passing, but it still worked out that Miami defense cannot stop the run. So I think you're right. I think we were calling for Miami. They had to lose at some point here. Now it makes it a little dicey going into the playoff. I think if they run the table, win the ACC, obviously they'll be in with the conference championship. But I mean, if they slip up one more, Clemson's still there to maybe get in the ACC. Looks like SMU is definitely going to be in the ACC championship. So, but I don't think you can take Miami seriously, even if they get to the playoff. Like this team is explosive on offense, but the defense is just as bad or even worse. So Miami finally getting their first loss of the year.
Yeah, and so many of these ACC teams have such poor strength of schedules. I mean, look at SMU and and Clemson and Miami. I mean, Miami really doesn't have any sort of signature win on their schedule. I mean, they scrape by Virginia Tech, California, Louisville, like you pointed out, all in a row. I mean, what's their really best win? I guess Florida week 1, which at the time, I mean, was kind of a big win, but then halfway through the season, that's Florida, it was horrible. I know they're playing a little bit better now, but yeah, I don't know about Miami. I guess I'm sure they get in. I mean, the biggest question is if they go 11-1 and then lose to like Clemson or an SMU in that ACC, then what? Like you go 11-2, you probably still sneak in. They probably get one of those at-larges at like 10 or 9, but I really, don't think they would be deserving, but that's fine. They'll have to go on the road somewhere and play a better team. So I guess it will all, play itself out. But yeah, definitely the margin of error got a lot thinner for them.
Yeah, so many 2-loss teams I think are going to be at the end of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But I feel like we've been saying this for a couple of years. Like the ACC has just been down. Like the ACC has not been good, I feel like, for like 4 or 5 years. And it's really going to hurt these teams now when you're talking about a expanded playoff of 12 teams when it was 4 teams and Clemson was really elite when you got your representation there. But now it's going to be a little tough. So yeah, going to be wild. We'll break it down once we get there with the selection of the 12 teams. But there's going to be so many 2-loss teams, and then you're going to be nitpicking. So Miami's probably going to have to look pretty good in these last couple of games here.
I'm going to go a little out of order here. I'm just going to go right into the Big 12. It's our only other Big 12 game we're going to cover. The recap of this week is BYU, kind of a similar situation as, Miami. I mean, BYU is still unbeaten. They have everything in front of them, and they get a huge win over Utah, controversial win. I didn't see it at the time. I was, out in State College at the last weekend, so I missed some of the games in real time and had to catch up per usual online afterwards. But just a controversial holding call. Utah had the game essentially won. Their athletic director put out a big statement afterwards complaining about the Big 12 and just everything in general, which was pretty wild to see. I don't think that's ever happened, as some people have pointed out. But I mean, BYU is a gritty team. They got it done. They still remind me of that TCU team that just got steamrolled in the national championship, but got there and beat Michigan and accomplished a lot. And the way that conference is shaping up, we were talking, is going to be real exciting with Colorado all of a sudden right there. They've really turned things around, and it's really becoming clear that it's going to be those two. Obviously, it's crazy, and there's 3 weeks left, so anything could happen. They could lose. Kansas State's right there. A couple other teams are within striking distance. But what a crazy game, controversial, and they scrape by Utah by a single point when it looked like the game was over.
Yeah, Utah really controlled this game. I mean, they were up most of the game, playing it really well. BYU did their BYU things and had a crazy comeback. Got a little luck. I didn't have the volume on in this game. I was out at the time, and so I saw the 4th down stop. They sacked them, and then I was like, oh, okay, game's over. And then I didn't know what was going on. They got the 1st down, and then literally after that, they just were chunking plays all the way down to the 20, 25-yard line. Kicker hit a nice field goal, too. It was not a short field goal, hit a nice bomb, just snuck it in. So Then you have the athletic director of Utah going to the podium after, not even the coach, and just blasting the ref. So that was crazy. Apparently there was some relationship or there was something with the ref that screwed him over in the Pac-12 last year, apparently, or in years past. So there was some, I don't know if that reffing or that ref crew is going to be working any Utah games going forward, but there was definitely some crazy stuff. And yeah, if you had BYU and Colorado in your Big 12 preview championship game in the summer, well, good for you, but it's what it's shaping up to be, which would be a crazy, crazy Big 12 championship. But again, still a lot can happen there.
Yeah, we said at the beginning too of the season how open these conferences are. I know we kind of picked a few off the top. We floated Utah, we floated Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Doesn't look like really any of them are going to be in it. So we knew how open it would be. Maybe Kansas State, they're right there. But I mean, Utah, I mean, I don't even know. What are they? Like, this is their fifth loss of the season at this point, or sixth. I don't even know. They're just completely have fallen off. But yeah, crazy game and crazy statement afterwards. I mean, I saw they fined him already and he issued an apology. I don't like that. I hate how you can't criticize. Like, if you criticize the officials, you get fined. I mean, that just seems insane. I get there's, media rights and there's other entities at stake here, but I don't know. I didn't agree with it, but I was fine. I mean, for the Big 12, then to lay the hammer down, I think just pisses more people off. But anyway, crazy game, controversial ending, according to some, I guess. But BYU hangs on and remains unbeaten.
Yeah, just like one quick note on Utah, too. I mean, the head coach is getting a little older. They just fired their offensive coordinator mid-season, which was also kind of a weird move by Utah. Seemed very frustrated. This year is going awry, as we just talked. Like, they're going to finish well below 500 for the first time in probably a while. So just something to keep an eye on. I think Utah was that program when they beat USC back-to-back years. I think in the Pac-12 championship, they were kind of on the rise. Favorites going into this year. I mean, if they lose their head coach, he retires, and a bunch of other stuff happens, they could be, starting over from ground zero. So just something to keep in mind with some of these programs here.
Yeah, no, Utah will be interesting to watch here next couple of seasons and see how they close out this year. Couple SEC games, big ones. This one really surprised me when I was following the score on my phone. Ole Miss, huge win over Georgia, 28-10. Have to give credit where credit is due. I did not like Ole Miss in this spot. I just had no faith in Lane Kiffin. I just thought Georgia was going to get it together, and you were right calling out their sputtering offense and saw those issues, and it clearly translated to this past Saturday. Not only a close win, just a blowout game. Ole Miss controlled the whole thing, fights back in the playoff, contention right now. If the season ended today, they'd be the 11 seed on the road at Penn State, which would be a heck of a game if that happened. But we'll see. A lot of things to play out. But Ole Miss all of a sudden right there in the picture. Georgia looking out now, or looking in, I should say, on the outside. Going to be an insane end to the SEC, and there's obviously the Alabama game we'll get to here. But yeah, Ole Miss just humiliating Georgia. Georgia's got a lot more problems, I think, than a lot of people thought here, losing like that.
Yeah, this one was so shocking. I expected Ole Miss to maybe show well, but then I wasn't confident in my pick at +3, and they really dominated this. And to start the game, they had a pick like second play of the game, Ole Miss. It starts to rain a little bit. Georgia goes right into play, scores, and 7-0. Jackson Dart got injured. His ankle got stepped on or something. I'm like, oh, here we go. Georgia's going to blow him out. That's what I was expecting, like, of course. And then literally Georgia didn't do anything the rest of the game. They spotted a quick 7, and they only finished with 10 points. Like, I was really impressed with this Ole Miss defense that I think is even better than I initially gave them credit. I really like this unit, but they're, I think, really, really good. Jackson Dart in the backup came in, drove right down the field, tied it up 7-7. So got to give some props to the backup for keeping the momentum going. Jackson Dart came in. He was looking a little – you could tell the ankle was bothering him, but made enough throws, and they were just chunking them. Like, it was just wide open receivers. Like, it was really, really surprising to see a Georgia team off of a couple national titles back-to-back now looking like this. The offense couldn't get anything. I mean, the offensive line's bad. The receivers can't get open. The running backs can't get any holes because the offensive line's not creating, and now Beck is forcing too much and turning it over. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll get a nice bounce back this week against Tennessee, but, like, going into the playoffs now, like, again, how much can you trust this Georgia team? Like, you sometimes have to remove, like, the title and the what's on their helmet, because they're not the Georgia team of past. I really like this Ole Miss team. I mean, their losses were close, and, like, that LSU loss was probably shouldn't have lost that one, and now I think Ole Miss could be a dangerous team if they could run the table. Still a lot to go on. the rest of the year here. But I think Ole Miss, with the way that defense is playing now, if the offense starts clicking a little bit, which it has the last 2 weeks, they could be a dangerous higher seed team to play in the playoffs.
Could you hear me, Paisley? My internet's a little slow here.
Yeah, no, I got you. Froze up a little bit, but you're good now.
Yeah, it's been a little choppy, but the show will go on here if it will allow us to. Another SEC blowout. Alabama just absolutely torching LSU 42-13. I'm not sure. A lot of people saw this one coming. I did have Alabama. They were one of my few that were right, I could say, on Saturday, but just not even close. 42-13. Alabama all of a sudden becomes, back in play here of the playoff after their, stumbles midway through the season. And it's going to be interesting. Like we just said, going to be a lot of SEC teams with 2 losses. How are you going to weigh those 2-loss teams in front of those 1-loss, Big 12 or 1-loss Miami, like in Big 10 right there? Like, it's just going to be fun how it all plays out. But LSU just absolutely lifeless in this one. Torched at home. Haven't seen that in a long time. With everybody talks about how great Death Valley is. And I know, Jared, we were thinking about even maybe going down there for that one. I'm glad we missed it because that was just not a good game to watch. Just crucifies LSU. Big win for Kalen DeBoer. They really needed that one. As we've said, Alabama continues on blowing out LSU.
Yeah, I just want to stress the week-by-week stuff is crazy because Alabama looks so bad. Now they're back, and I agree. I think they could be dangerous going to the playoff. LSU was looking good maybe midway through the season. Then they lost Texas A&M, beat Arkansas, looked really impressive, then lost last week, and then again got blown out here. I mean, 42-13 is just insane. I was just more impressed with the Alabama offense, honestly. Jalen Milroe, again, when he gets his legs going, he can really be involved in the run game. Their offense is dangerous. And then the biggest shock was probably what happened to this LSU offense. I mean, they were scoring points up and down every game. The defense was giving up a bunch of points. Last year, even their defense was terrible. And now their offense with Nussmeier, he was looking so good early on the year. I don't know if he's still banged up, but they were both coming off a bye. So you thought he should have been rested up. But he was making some terrible decisions. And, yeah, just couldn't even get this game in range. I mean, this game was out of pocket from like the second quarter on. So really shocking at home for LSU. And, that fan base was a lot of highs and lows, even going back to that first game of the year against USC when they lost a close one. So that fan base has been through a lot this year.
Yeah, and LSU, I mean, they don't have too difficult of a schedule here. They finish with Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. So 3 very winnable games, even for them. I mean, they haven't been very good since coming off these couple of losses. But, they could be in a situation where they have 2 SEC losses only. I mean, it'll be interesting how it plays out with Alabama. I mean, Texas is still now obviously the front runner there, but it's going to be interesting to play out. Not sure who Alabama ends with. I guess they have Auburn, and then or that's the last game of the season. I'd have to look at who they have in the next couple of weeks. But I mean, nonetheless, yeah, just surprise game. Alabama back in the SEC picture. Big win, 42-13 over LSU.
There could be a 6 or 7 way tie in the SEC with these 2 losses in SEC play. So tiebreakers are definitely probably going to be coming up in the SEC in these last couple of weeks for sure. So crazy.
That being said, because Alabama should end with 2 SEC losses, obviously, too. Vanderbilt, Tennessee. They have Mercer this week, so I guess that's why we're not on our list. SEC has these 8 game. Quick note on this: 8 games they only play in conference. Every other conference plays 9. They play 8. I mean, give me a break. I don't know. I don't like. I understand some teams play, a rival, and you got the Georgia Tech thing, but I mean, Alabama's non-con games is just an absolute joke. Mercer, Western Kentucky, South Florida. I guess they went to Wisconsin this year. But still, 4 non-con games. I feel like how big these conferences have expanded. They should be playing at least minimum of 9 conference games. We should not be only playing half of the SEC in conference.
I agree.
All right, last one quick, and then we'll get into the winners and losers of week 11 and just in general. I'll say that. Indiana scrapes by Michigan, 20-15. Just wanted to add this one on our list. Another, I guess, big win for Indiana. They are unbeaten. They haven't beaten Michigan in quite a while. They're 10-0. It was an ugly game, I'll say that. I mean, Indiana, a lot of speculation at the top of the rankings. How good really is Indiana? Their ranking and strength of schedule is down in the hundreds. I mean, it's not very impressive, but similar to BYU, they're winning games, and BYU's wins have been a lot uglier, in my opinion, really, than Indiana's. This was the first one that was kind of endangered at times. Low scoring, but they do get the win over Michigan, 20-15. So good win for them, but still, I'm not sure they're still a contender at this point. Their big test will be Ohio State here in a couple of weeks, but Indiana gets by Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I think Indiana 10-0. I mean, this is a program that struggled to even get 4 or 5 wins in the last 5 to 10 years. So this is a huge step in the right direction for this program. Like you said, maybe not playing the best competition, but still go 10-0 after you're a program that was struggling just to get wins in general. So big props for them. This game was – I had a little bet on the first half and then the Indiana minus 14 for the game. The first half they cashed. It was nice. They got out to a 14-3 lead, I think it was, and they were controlling. And then, the second half just kind of sputtered and just couldn't really get that offense going. And then Michigan actually had a couple scores, which is surprising on their offensive side of the ball. So, I was surprised that Michigan – the number was because of Indiana just covering every week, like probably shouldn't have been 14 for the game, but Indiana was going way past their numbers every week. So then this was the first week it finally evened out, like we talked about. So, still got to give Indiana credit for beating Michigan because there was a little possibility there they could have let that one slip and could have got a loss that they couldn't afford there. And like you said, obviously the huge one next weekend, I think that is against Ohio State. That'll be a really, really fun one to break down and watch next week.
Yeah. And quick side note on Michigan. Are they the worst defending national champion in college football history? Because they are an absolute joke. I pronounced them dead. If you're listening to the podcast, I think maybe after the Texas game, is that week 1, week 2? I don't know. I pronounced them dead early. We said they'd have 4 or 5 losses. They might even have more at this point, the pace that they're on losing games. But bad for Michigan, big win for Indiana, just from a historical perspective. But Michigan, not a good football team.
Yeah, I think you might be on something with the worst national championship the following year. They're going to make a bowl. Like they're going to be scraping.
You're right. You're right about that. They may not. They might get 6. I mean, they're going to be close. I mean, they're going to lose Ohio State. I think they'll get the 6 wins.
They should get the 6.
On to the winners and losers. I'm just going to go quickly first here on my loser because you are led into it. Already led into the Indiana Ohio State game coming up in a couple of weeks. Mr. Paisley, do you know what time that game is going to be played at?
Usually Ohio State plays on Fox every week at noon, so I'm going to say noon.
Big noon games suck, Jared. The loser of my week because, look, I don't like Ohio State. I'm a Penn State fan. But Ohio State is going to close out their season with 6 noon games in a row. They've ruined a lot this year. They've ruined Texas, Michigan early in the season. That should have been a night game when Michigan was, good before they got steamrolled. They've ruined the Penn State whiteout, as I know. Instead, we had to blow out Washington in a game that I said we'd win by a lot. They won by a lot because we're playing terrible teams in a whiteout, and it was against a terrible Washington team on Peacock, which nobody watches. That should be another thing that maybe for next week Peacock will be blasted. But Fox Big Noon is ruining primetime college football, big games in the Big Ten. And I know Joel Klatt has put out, Big Noon ratings were horrible, and then Big Noon came along, and now all of a sudden we have the best ratings in the country. And there's a reason their ratings have got up because every other noon game, and for the history of time, noon games have been terrible. So when you put at least a half decent noon game on at noon, of course everybody's going to watch it. That contract needs to be reevaluated at some point here over the next couple of years. I know they're in a long-term contract through at least, I think, the end of 2026. So we've got a while to go, but maybe there'll be something in between. I don't know. NBC, CBS, they have the better time slots. I know Fox has their first selection. But all that being said, Ohio State should not be playing noon 6 games in a row. Penn State should not be playing their whiteout against a 4-4 Washington team. Michigan, Texas should not be at noon. Ohio State, Michigan should not be at noon. There's just, well, maybe they should because historical. I don't care. I'm getting off track. Anyway, noon games suck, Jared. And that's the end of my TED Talk here of my loser of the week. It's big noon. It's America. It's Fox. It's everything about it. It's terrible. It's ruining college football.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Yeah, can Fox just get the primetime spot? Like, if they have the big game of the week, people are going to watch no matter what time it is. So
yeah, they can't. They have to put their marquee game in and at the noon slot because CBS gets to put theirs at 3:30 and NBC gets to put theirs at 7:30. So
right.
no matter, and that was a deal that those three networks made together that the Big Ten signed. But the problem is, like, NBC can't just pick the best game because Fox has more of the rights to the Big Ten conference than NBC does. So Fox usually gets to select first. So they obviously always pick the biggest game. So
yeah, that makes sense. I feel like Michigan's been on that 3:30 with the guys from CBS.
Yes,
guys.
They have been.
Fox has been doing every Ohio State game at noon with Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson. It's just like you're trying to hype up Purdue and Ohio State last year is like your big time slot at noon. Like, it's just getting ridiculous. Like, let's sprinkle it in a little bit, mix it up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think that just solidified it with the Penn State whiteout and looked really good. It got the crowd behind it. And then, yeah, it doesn't really matter because you probably would have beat Washington at any time of the day last weekend.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. Waste. But anyway, Paisley, enough of me. What is your who is your loser of the week?
That's important issues there, Case. And my loser, I'm going to go as the LSU offense. I was just really expecting different things. Honestly, the last couple weeks haven't looked good. And I mean, like you said, at home, big atmosphere. They got a nighttime slot, and then they did nothing with it. Alabama just running all over them again. Brian Kelly, the offensive staff, just again, I think every time I picked LSU this year, I was on the wrong side of it, trying to fade them or being on them. So I'm just done with this team in general. They're just pissing me off. Their playoff hopes should be dead unless they somehow sneak into the SEC championship. But yeah, this LSU offense that just looks so good in the beginning of the year. You know, you're at home, off a bye, and you put up, what was it, 13 points? I think it was. Like, just embarrassing. I think they scored one of the touchdowns late too. They had 6 points like the whole game. So yeah, a lot of questions there in LSU. That was not a good look for the program.
Yeah, at home too. I mean, of all things, like we were just talking about, just completely blown out. Brian Kelly, what could you say? Big games? I don't know.
No good in big games.
My winner of the week, and I absolutely hate to do this one, Jared. Despise to do this one, but it is the Colorado Buffaloes.
Ooh.
Because they control their own destiny in the path to the playoffs. They have one loss in the Big 12. They are right behind BYU. All they need to do is win out, and they'll be there. They're 17th ranked right now in the rankings, but that doesn't mean anything the way the new structure's set up. They have Utah this week. They have Kansas next week, and then they finish with Oklahoma State. I could see them losing all three of those. I could see them winning all three of those, really. So I don't know what's going to happen with Colorado, but they have a lot in front of them. They got a huge win against Texas Tech on the road this past week. The game really wasn't even close, 41-27. I'll be the first one to say it. I picked Texas Tech to win outright in that one, but what do you know? You know, sometimes you pick wrong in this sport. But yeah, big win for Colorado. They have everything in front of them. Hate to do it, but they're right there. And they have a shot to make the playoff and maybe even win a game. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, the offense is rolling for sure for Colorado. They're peaking at the right time. This is when you want to be playing your best ball. So definitely a team to keep your eye on, but it's hard not to because they're always in the limelight and always getting some publicity. So even though it's annoying, you got to give them flowers. I mean, you're right. This team is impressive in what they're doing, and it's pretty crazy what they're accomplishing here this season. And yeah, if they can even just get to the Big 12 championship, that'd be a huge win for them. So definitely a team to keep an eye on there. I'll keep it positive here. The game we touched on a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go Georgia Tech. I feel like you just got to give them flowers. Haynes King came back. They're starting QB, but he had a right shoulder injury and like couldn't even throw the ball. So he was just running it all game. I think he had 3 pass attempts, and they were bringing in a freshman on like third downs, and everyone knew they were going to pass it. I think they only passed it like 9 or 10 times. Like, it was literally like a service academy game. And Miami's coaching staff could not make adjustments, even though Georgia Tech was just going one way. And then I was really impressed with Georgia Tech defense for kind of slowing down that Miami offense. And they really didn't get their scores till later in the game once they caught a little fire. So nice win on campus there in Georgia Tech, which they probably haven't had in a long time. So got to give a lot of credit to the Yellow Jackets here this weekend.
Yeah. Remember that Georgia Tech game? They beat Florida State in like 2015 on the blocked field goal, the return. That was a crazy year. I think that was the same year as the Michigan State drop punt. That was a great couple of weeks. But outside of that, I can't remember a big win on that campus in a long time. So yeah, good pick there. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets winner of the week. All right, might as well just jump right into it here. Week 12, doing pretty good on time here, Jared. I don't know, it might be onto something.
Yeah.
Now, we got a decent slate, definitely not the best slate. We've had a couple of insane slates this year, but sometimes at slates like this, we'll see the most craziness in. So, and it could start here right early in the day at noon, Texas at Arkansas. Longhorns laying 13.5. Complete driver's seat of the SEC, especially after Georgia's loss this past weekend. Going to Arkansas, which has kind of been a weird team all year. A couple people pick them to finish near the bottom here. The SEC standings are last. Them in Mississippi State, they've really played better than that. 57.5 is the total. Not sure I have a pick on this one yet. I might have to think about it. What are your thoughts here in this one? Texas, Arkansas.
Yeah, initially I like the over in this game. It's creeping up a little bit, but I'd still take it. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one. Starting on the Texas side, I think they've been probably the most consistent team in the SEC. Maybe not the best, but they've been pretty consistent. But I just think their offensive line is going to protect Ewers nice when he has time to throw. He's a very good quarterback. When he doesn't have time, like the Georgia game, could get a little messy, and that's when he starts having the turnovers. But I don't see Arkansas really pushing that offensive line around too much. So I think Ewers are trying to get some receivers healthy again. I like their offense, Texas. I think they have a very good offense. But on the other side, I still don't trust this Texas defense. They're like number 1 and 2 in some metrics and points per game and all this stuff. But like you look back, if you look at their schedule, like they haven't really played good offenses. Their best offense might have been Georgia's, and we just talked about how much they are struggling and how they aren't really a great offense. So they played Michigan, they played Mississippi State, they just played Florida with a third-string quarterback. So it's like they're looking good in the counting stats, but I just don't trust this offense. This, I think, will be the best offense they'll face. You get Arkansas at home, coming off a bye. Their quarterback, that Taylor Green, was a little banged up. Hopefully he's healthy. So I think Arkansas can score enough points. I don't know if they could cover this number. This is actually crashing down. It was 15.5, now down to 13.5. So I don't know if I trust them that much. I like that they're at home coming off a bye, but I just think Texas is going to put up too many points. And I think Arkansas could do their damage and score enough to get this over the 57.5 total for the game.
Yeah, good points. And you're right. I mean, I'm looking at Texas's schedule now. They're let's not forget the Vanderbilt game when they were on the ropes and they gave up. I mean, they haven't played a lot of great teams. I mean, really, they've really dodged a bullet here in the SEC. They still have A&M here at the end of the year, which will be a great game. I can't wait to watch that one. Texas at Texas A&M, November 30th. But yeah, they allowed 17 against Florida, 24 against Vanderbilt. A low scoring game against Georgia, 30-15, a weird game there. And then, other than probably the best game they played all year was the rivalry game, Oklahoma. They won 34-3, but Oklahoma's terrible and Michigan's terrible. Their 2 real good wins are not so great anymore. So anyway, 57.5 is the total. So we'll watch the scoring on that one. Then we'll jump right into the Big 12, which we were just kind of talking about. Colorado, Utah has to go there. Colorado is laying quite a lot of points here. 11.5, I think, was what DraftKings had it when I looked at this earlier today. May have changed a little bit. Total is only 45.5. I mean, Utah's been pretty bad. They're now 4-5 overall, 1-5 in the Big 12. Like you just pointed out, Colorado, all of a sudden, his offense is looking good. They've been able to score almost at will. They've come a long way from the beginning of the season when I was ripping apart Colorado every week, which I kind of preferred. But anyway, they have everything in front of them, laying 11.5. I don't know. I I'm not jumping on the bandwagon just yet. I know they were my winner of the week. There's a reason for that. My winners of the week usually lay an egg the next week. So I think I'm going to take Utah here with the points. I'm not officially tune in Saturday morning to see, but it's going to be a fun game to watch. Utah has to go on the road there, but man, a lot of points there. If you told me that in September, I'd say that's insane. Laying 11.5 against Utah.
Yeah, this seems like a ton of points. I mean, we always talk about the summer lines or the lines before the season started. This had to be around 7 or 10. Utah was giving Colorado, so now maybe a 20-point adjustment. It's just crazy. I would love to take Utah here. I might, like you, I'm still on the fence a little bit, but just because of how last weekend ended for them with the controversy, that's a huge rival. They had them at home, had them on the ropes. You could either go two ways in response. You could either really, get pissed off and fight back the next week, or you could really let it derail your season and just still be upset from that and really have it let a lasting effect on you. So that's right, because I feel like Utah doesn't have much to play for now. That BYU game was a big one. If they would have won that one, maybe got a little momentum through the rest of the year. But I think that loss, the way they lost it, just the rivalry itself, that's just what scares me. I think this Utah team could be not checking out, but could be not really having the motivation and playing for. And on the flip side, Colorado has everything to play for. They got to win every game, and they have a real shot to get to the playoffs. So it's still a lot. I think this will keep creeping up, honestly. So maybe just wait on it. It might go up to 12, 13, even a 14 maybe. But I think Utah's defense could keep them in this game if it gets in the double digits here, covering the spread. So lean Utah, but yeah, don't love it.
Yeah, the playoffs really start this week for Colorado. I mean, just think about it as the week 1 playoff game. If they treat every game like a playoff game here and win here, the rest of them, they're going to be. I mean, they're right there. They, like we said, they control their own destiny. So, and yeah, on the other side, Utah, will they just roll over like USC did after their losses? So, we fun to watch that one this week. Utah at Colorado.
Yeah, just the last point with just some of these teams, like you said, like USC is a good one, or Utah. Like these teams had high expectations, like they were Big 12 favorites, like we discussed, or they're not used to losing this much. Then you lose a couple games, now you're like quote unquote fighting for a bowl. It's like how much does the coaching staff or players really want to fight for that? So you get into that time period now in late November where it's like some of these teams that had really high expectations, if they have a bunch of losses, kind of like a Michigan too, like they weren't fighting for bowl eligibility. And then the opposite, if you're a lower end school, you haven't been to a bowl in a while, or that's like your Super Bowl, maybe look to buy on some of those teams that are close to that 6-win mark.
Yeah. And this game, Utah-Colorado, this is a game in every other season since the start of college football would have any implications outside of winning this game, and maybe for Colorado trying to win the Big 12. But as far as like getting into the playoffs, and here we are, we said there'd be 25 teams thinking they can make the playoffs in mid-November, and it's true. I mean, they're ranked 17th, and Colorado, they could care less what their ranking is, because they could just believe they're the 4th best team and win their conference, and they're in. And it's making it very exciting. This is a game I probably wouldn't be excited about last year or any other year, but all of a sudden, these mid-teens, lower 20s, anybody vying for a conference bid, SEC wide open. It's just going to make these last 3 weeks fun to watch. Leads us right into the ACC, a couple of 2-loss teams. Also, everything in front of them still. Clemson going to Pittsburgh. I've said for a couple of weeks, I think Pittsburgh is a fraud team. I think I'm right here about it. I'm going to take Clemson and lay the 10. I think they're going to go in there and win pretty handily. And I don't love Clemson either. I think they've had flaws. We saw their loss against Louisville. Their loss against Georgia now week 1's looking horrible, because Georgia's turns out not maybe to be the elite team we thought they were. But no, I think Clemson gets a bounce back game here. I think Pittsburgh, now they're coming off of, I think, 2 losses in a row after that huge win against Syracuse a couple of weeks ago. They just lost to UVA. It's not going to be much of a crowd there. I know how that stadium gets. It'll be half empty. So it'll be fun to watch. I like Clemson. Jared, what are your thoughts here in the ACC? Pittsburgh, I think, could still get there with winning out. I'd have to look at how that conference shapes up with losses. But if they win this one, I mean, they are right there.
Right. Yeah, no, I think they are. I think they're 7-2 because they had that nice hot start to go out to 7-0. But I think this is another great game, like you just mentioned, like that would never have intrigue in the years past, the 14 playoff, because Clemson wouldn't be in it with 2 losses. So now you get this intrigue where Clemson's still kind of fighting. So it just makes all these games that we're going to preview like just have a little bit of juice to them when they probably wouldn't have in years past. I think that's great for the sport. So in this one, I'd probably disagree a little bit with you. I'd probably take Pitt, actually, even though I don't love it, plus the 10. I feel like Pitt just matches up good with Clemson every year, always gives them fits, but
That's true.
not a huge like loving Pitt and going to hammer it and be a whale play, but I think it's just a little bit too much, a little bit of an overreaction. But you're right, they haven't looked good the last 2 weeks, so it is going to be tough. I think you're right. It's going to be a little sleepy environment, not that packed in Pittsburgh there. So Clemson's definitely showing some vulnerabilities, but I think their offense will get back on track and maybe look to an over too. But yeah, maybe just lean Pitt and the over 53 in this one.
Pittsburgh has beaten them. I feel like it's only when they're like really good, though.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. Like, Clemson's really good because it's usually when Pittsburgh's like really bad, and it's
Right.
like one of these games where nobody really sees coming. Whereas I think this time I feel like both teams kind of respect Pittsburgh knows how Clemson is, and I think Clemson's like, okay, we got to take care of our games. And Pittsburgh was 6-0, and that's why I feel like Clemson could keep on the throttle. But yeah, normal years, you're right. I mean, historically, Pittsburgh has been always right there, kind of a surprise game. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. Maybe I'll have that one on my slate. Clemson -10. We'll see. All right, Paisley, you were a big fan of the military academies, the Navy midshipmen hosting number 25 Tulane. Big game for American implications, for sure. At the top of that conference, I think. I think is Tulane at top? No, Army's at top, and then I guess Tulane and Navy are right there behind them. The total is 53.5 in this one. Tulane slight edge, but honestly, group of 5 playoff bids possibly. I hope. I mean, we got Boise. There's a long way to go, but if they slip up, it's going to come right down to Tulane, Navy, and Army, and see how it plays out. What do you think? You probably know more about these styles of play for both these teams. Tulane at Navy.
Yeah, just want to give a quick shout out to the American Conference here because it looks like Boise State should run away with it. They're favored heavily, and then they should be a nice favorite in their Mountain West Championship game if they get there, which will be in Boise. But if they slip up, or if they slip up even in the conference championship, I think Tulane could be a team to keep your eye on. That could sneak in as that group of 5 team with only having 1 loss. They're quietly playing some good ball. They have a new head coach from Troy, who probably not people watched a lot of Troy football, but they won the Sun Belt, I think, 2 out of the last 3 years, and then their program dropped off a cliff. So I think that just shows how good of a coach this new Tulane coach is. So I think now going up against Army here, this one's tough to judge on the spread. I think Tulane is better than Navy. Navy got back into form with a nice win last week. Navy's at home. Like I said, I like Army more than Navy, so they'd probably be like my 3rd pick in the Power 5 or in the group of 5. But I kind of like the over in this one. I'm going to go with a couple overs here, but I think Tulane's going to score a lot of points. I don't think Navy's defense is that good. And I do like Tulane's defense, but I think Navy has such a unique and hard offense to prepare for just off of 1 week. Nobody's coming off a bye in this one. So kind of like a lot of points in this one. So probably take the over 53. But just keep your eye on Tulane. I don't know if they run the table and Boise State runs the table. Boise State would obviously get in, but just in case, as we like to, there's a lot of madness. Boise State almost slipped up last week against Nevada, only won by 7 or 10. So just something to keep your eye on. I think Tulane's playing some good ball and could be representing the group of 5 in the playoff potentially.
Yeah, that would be fun to watch. Yeah, who would have had Tulane on their bingo cards at the beginning of the season for a chance to make the playoffs? But you're right. I mean, if Boise even gets to that Mountain West Championship and loses, it becomes. I think it'd be impossible for them to make it because I think it has to be the highest ranked champion. So even if like Boise were to lose close and only fall, 5-10 spots and there was no other team there, I don't even think that matters. I think they would automatically be excluded unless they were remained in that top 12. So yeah, good point on Tulane. That'll be interesting here to watch. At Navy, I'm rooting for Navy, but you're right. That's kind of a lot of points in this type of game. I feel like I would lean Navy with the points. We'll see that one on Saturday.
And then just one more point on Tulane too. I would have to double check, but their schedule, I think, has a nice beef to it at the end where they play Navy. I think they play Army and Memphis, who Memphis fell off a little bit, but they're still have a pretty good record. So I think if they win all three, win the American, they're going to have some great momentum and really get boosted up in the rankings a lot, winning against some of these top tier teams. So that's also
who's Tulane's loss to?
Oklahoma. Just looking at their schedule now. That was early in the year. I think it was week 2, actually. They lost 34-19 to Oklahoma. So that's not a I mean, Oklahoma's not great, but it's a, Power 5 school, pretty big school, so it's not a terrible loss.
But you're right. If they win those 3 games, it will become a debate between them and Boise State on who could get in, because those teams would probably really start to close the gap in the rankings on who's going to be higher ranked. You're right. I think it is Boise if they control the rest of it and take care of it, especially handily. But I don't know. Tulane, they get through here and they get through Army. All of a sudden, yeah, they're probably going to be sitting in the top 20. So let that play out. Number 1 team in the land goes to Madison, Wisconsin. And my original thought here when I saw this game was, man, Wisconsin really just got screwed with their schedule, because they had tough game after tough game. It seems, I know Penn State was there. They won. They had Alabama home. They had Oregon now coming here, number 1 Oregon, ranked 14, having to go to Wisconsin. Total at 51.5. I think I lean Oregon here again. I don't know. I feel like some of these games could just kind of get blown away here in the later third quarter and fourth quarter. I just don't know if Wisconsin has what it takes to keep this one close, but it is 2 touchdowns. And, we've seen crazier things happen so far in the Big Ten, and Oregon, kind of took, remember, 3-4 weeks to really get going. I know it's been a while since then, and they have looked like probably the best team in the country. But it is wide open this year. I don't think we have any like elite team like we've seen in years past. So interesting spot. Have to go on the road in the Big Ten. Their first time there probably in forever. It may be actually literally forever. Oregon at Wisconsin.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Just not to blow my own tires here, but did have Wisconsin under 7 wins at the beginning of the season, if you listen to the preseason pod. And it was mostly because of the schedule. I mean, the schedule was brutal, like you outlined, and they've been winning the games they should against some lower teams, and then definitely losing the games they were not favored in. So I think this is a tough stretch. Wisconsin's getting beat up pretty bad here. I kind of like the under in this one, 51.5. It was at 53 earlier in the week, so coming down a little bit. And I'd probably take Oregon too. Laying the points, kind of weird to take a higher favorite and then an under 2, but I think Oregon's rolling right now. I think they're really complete on both sides of the ball, kind of getting better every week. They have been big favorites every week, which is kind of, like, when do they get a little sleepy? Do they get a little, not motivated to play these games? So another 14-point favorite, but I just don't like this Wisconsin team on offense. I just don't think they can move the ball well. I like their defense could keep them in the game, I think, for the first half maybe. But then I think Oregon will probably end up winning this game by more than 2 touchdowns, but probably a bigger play on the under, and then a little chunk on the Ducks minus 14.
Yeah, I like the Ducks minus 14. And Wisconsin, the only good thing about their schedules, they've had their tougher games at home, but still they have to go to Nebraska next week. They had to go to USC earlier in the year, which at the time USC was, I think, ranked in the top 20. Or yeah, they're looking now. They're ranked 13th. So yeah, tough schedule. And what you said, you got it at under 7 wins, Mr. Paisley?
Yeah. So I think they'd have to run the table to get to 7. So it's looking pretty good for right now, I think.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting, to watch their big game for Wisconsin to try to ruin Jared's bet, but we'll see what happens there. Highest ranked SEC matchup of the week. Number 7 Tennessee going to number 12 Georgia. Georgia 10.5 point favorite. Tennessee's quarterback, I believe, is hurt. Tennessee fans not too optimistic about this one from what I've been seeing online. The total's only at 48.5, but man, Georgia doesn't look all that impressive either. Like we've just talked about, coming off that horrible loss against Ole Miss, blown out last week. So weird game. I've been kind of saying every SEC game has been a playoff eliminator game, but then another SEC team just continues to lose. So there's going to be one of these 2-3 loss teams that do get in. But this one really feels like an elimination game. I mean, I can't see either of these really affording at this point, especially the way the rankings are shaped up. the path to the SEC championship probably closes with a loss here. Maybe not, because I've seen crazier things happen. But Tennessee at Georgia, line is 10.5. Georgia back home, totals 48.5.
Yeah, I'm just surprised on the ranking show that Tennessee's number 7, I think it is, right? I don't know why they're that high. They got the nice win against Alabama. It's hard to place some of these teams, in the top 12, but losing to Arkansas on the road, and then not really looking impressive in any of these other games. So I think, if they lose this one, they'll probably get bumped back. But Tennessee's just that one team where I'm just like, I don't know why they're ranked this high. I just don't really like this team overall. I like their defense. I think their defense is really good. Secondary, still a little questionable, but yeah, this offense is broken. And now with the quarterback being injured, who had a lot of high expectations, they just can't get enough going. And I think the way to beat this Georgia team is with an explosive offense and, really putting more points up and making them play from behind. So I kind of like Georgia here at home. The number is a little too high, so I don't really love it at 10.5. I do like the under. We're going to go to another under in this one, 48.5. I got it at 50.5 on Sunday. I just think both these defenses are going to dominate. I hate both these offenses, and I love both these defenses, so it just seems like a good underplay. But Georgia laying a lot. Like in the past, you'd love it. They have responded well when they lost that game against Alabama, and then they were really fired up to play Texas and looked really good. So this could be another spot where if they could get the momentum back on their side, and usually Kirby's pretty good off a loss, so I'd probably lean to Georgia here. But I do like the under a good amount at 48.5.
Yeah, definitely good defenses, and they are back home at night. So I was just shitting on Big Noon, so they get the nice nighttime slot there in the SEC. So we'll see if Georgia could handle them. Laying 10.5, definitely a lot of points. And by the way, on Tennessee, they do have that UTEP, of course, and November 23rd, because the SEC that's how they do their scheduling. But they do have to go to Vandy, the last game of the season, which could be interesting. Even if Tennessee wins this game, a huge game, they're probably going to think they're all of a sudden in. They'll only have that one loss to Arkansas, probably SEC championship bound. But then they still got to go to Vandy. So watch out for that game in a couple of weeks. That'll be a fun one to break down for how good Vanderbilt's offense has been. That'd be fun to watch Vanderbilt's offense versus Tennessee's defense, but still a few weeks away there. That'll be there's a big game this week, potentially playoff elimination game here between Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah, and I think as we know a lot case from last year, seeing this game in person, Georgia usually has Tennessee's number. Tennessee, I feel like, struggles mightily against Georgia, even if they have some of these really good teams. This year's team not as good as some of his years past, so just for some reason, I think when you get in some of these rivalry games late in November here, I think Georgia has Tennessee's number. So it'll be a fun one to watch, though.
And last but not least here, Kansas, Big 12 action going to number 6, BYU, who is technically would be the 4 seed or the 3 seed, actually 3 seed. Wow. In the playoffs, if the season ended and they were the champion. The way it's shaping up, they are just a slight favorite against Kansas this week, 2.5. They've been on the ropes many times. BYU has been able to fight out of it and get these close wins, as I keep saying, similar to how TCU was winning games just a few seasons ago. Kansas has been a little bit of a letdown this year, for sure. They lost their offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, to Penn State, as we've talked about before. Season's been up and down. But chance to get a big win for them on the road. Spread's only 2.5. They had a big win, I think, last week, Kansas. Total is 56.5. Mr. Paisley, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like Kansas in this one. I keep fading BYU. It's burned me a couple times, but we got the cover last week against Utah. I think you were on that one as well. But I think Kansas is a team that not a lot of people are talking about because they had such a terrible start. I think they only have 3 wins on the year. So just a really disappointing year on the record-wise, but some of their losses have been close if you look back at their schedule. Really close calls, 50-50 bounces that didn't go their way. But I kind of like this team the way they're playing right now. I think they should have beat Kansas State 2 weeks ago. I was watching that game. Kansas State got a little lucky at the end, only lost by 2. And Kansas State's pretty solid. And then won outright and really controlled that game, put up 45 points against Iowa State last week in Arrowhead, technically a home game for them. So I think now this team I think they're getting a little bit hotter towards the end of the year. They run the ball good. Their defense is a lot better than in years past. I think BYU, now we were just talking about Utah and the effects it had on them. I think this will still have a little bit of effect on BYU because they had to put a lot of effort and a lot of emotion into that game, that rivalry game we talked about, scraping out of there with another win. Now you got to turn right back around, play a pretty hot Kansas team that is, again, not the record showing that they're great, but I kind of like Kansas here to get the upset and give BYU their first loss. I think the spot really just matches up good for Kansas, but BYU is just a Cinderella team, like you were talking about with TCU. So it's they always like to pull something crazy in the last couple seconds. But I think this is going to be another fun one down to the end. But I think, like Miami, I think they're not going to be able to win this one and get into another close one and end up losing this one late.
Yeah, I do think it's inevitable that BYU has to lose one of these close games. I've said the same thing about so many of these teams. It might be here. I don't know. I mean, it's at home. At least they have that going for them. Also, yeah, Kansas. It was that Iowa State game that I was thinking about. They are playing really good. They beat Iowa State, and this game's at 10:15 at night. By the way, that's a great slot. Something to watch late night there on Saturday. But yeah, big game for both these teams. Big shot for Kansas to knock off top-ranked Big 12 team BYU, and BYU's just got to keep creeping by some of these games. I would probably lean Kansas also. I think at some point here BYU's going to lose in these tight spreads. I mean, how many more weeks can things go their way, especially what happened last week in the Holy War versus Utah. So this will be fun. This will be a fun one to watch, and not sure how the rest of the Big 12 plays out, but BYU, they're unbeaten. But if they, lose and this week and see how the rest of the season plays out, I mean, I'm not sure who's third. I guess Kansas State could find themselves back in the playoff hunt. Mm-hmm. This has just been a wild conference all year. Fun to watch.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I think BYU could afford a loss and still have their, path looking pretty good. If they would have lost to Utah last week, it would have got dicey, but I think they could afford one. So not to say they're going to throw this game away, but they've had a lot of these close games and, squeaking them out. So I think they could afford a loss, still get into the Big 12 championship because they own a couple tiebreakers with Kansas State. I think because they beat them earlier in the year. So BYU's in a good spot, even if they lose a game. But yeah, I think Kansas pulls the upset. It's crazy this number is this low if you look at the records of these teams. So just a really weird spread on this one. But I'm going on the Jayhawk train here. Give me Kansas.
And quickly, before we just get to our best bets here, Week 12, I'm looking at the Big 12 standings. Yeah, so they could slip up as unbeaten. But if Colorado were to lose a game, we would have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Big 12 teams with 2 losses in second place. So I don't know how all those tiebreakers would shape out, but literally West Virginia could be a co-Big 12 champion with Arizona State. Those teams are 4-2 in conference, right behind Colorado. So man, I'm kind of rooting for Colorado to lose now because I want to see absolute chaos. If West Virginia could battle back to that 4th spot.
It would be a crazy turnaround story for the Mountaineers.
Not sure how those tiebreakers will all play out. I'd have to really. We'll probably get into that literally in 2 weeks. Once we conclude the last game, we can talk about all the tiebreaker situations, or
right.
Going into the last week, I should say. But craziness, how many teams here still have a shot.
Right.
All right, what everybody has been waiting for at home. You've probably just skipped to this part of the video because it's probably what I would do. Best bets, Mr. Paisley, Week 12. What are some of your preliminary picks here that caught your eye?
Yeah, if you've been listening to this section a lot, we're gonna go back to the well, as they say, a little bit. Go to some teams and some total plays that we've been doing a lot that I feel have been profitable. We're gonna start with the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii. We're going to bring them up again because I just love this spot. And we're fading another team that we faded a lot, which is Utah State. We brought them up the last couple of times. I think their defense is the worst in the league, worst in the country. Hawaii, I kind of like this team just overall. I think they're kind of playing some good ball right now. Had a couple close losses, so that's why their record doesn't look as good, but really fighting in those games. Only laying 2.5. Short number here. It's kind of swinging towards. It was kind of a pick 'em, now swinging out to 2.5, 3. So give me Hawaii. They're on the road in Utah, going off the island here, but I like them to get this win here and cover the short favorite of 2.5.
Yeah, that's right. Off the island, and they've got to win this one to go bowl eligible. If they want to go back to that Hawaii Aloha Bowl. I think that's still a thing. They got to win this one. They're 4-6. You're right. Tough one against UNLV. Close one. Lost a close one against San Diego State early in the year. Almost knocked off UCLA, remember, week like 2. Huge, could have been a huge game. So Hawaii might be a little bit better than their record. I like that one. -2.5 there. I'm sticking in the major conferences here in these picks. I got Clemson laying 10. I know Paisley, you weren't a huge fan of this one. I just don't like Pittsburgh. I think for the reasons I laid it out earlier, I like where they're at in this spot. I think Clemson still knows that their season's ahead of us, and Pittsburgh may or may not know that. But I think Clemson's just a better team. I can see this game getting away from Pittsburgh late, maybe close early. But as much as 10 points is, like, college football is so weird. Like, it's nothing like the NFL. Like, once the game is, like, slightly lopsided, it could just go off the rails. And I'm not saying it's going to be an absolute blowout, but I think Clemson's fully capable of beating this type of Pittsburgh team. And especially because I think, from where Pittsburgh was 2 weeks ago, like, all of a sudden top 15 people are talking about them unbeaten. Like, beginning of the year, this Pittsburgh team was nothing. I mean, they took a miracle to beat West Virginia, as we all know. And now here they are against Clemson. I don't know. I just think Clemson's a little bit better. I wish Clemson, maybe beat Louisville and they were in a little bit of a different spot. I'm not sure they're, incredible here. I'm not trying to say that, but I think they are capable here of beating Pittsburgh here by at least 10 points. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Pitt definitely overachievers this year. I think we could agree. So, yeah, when are they going to lose a little luster there? But yeah, I'll go heads up with you. We'll see what happens in that one. One of us should win. Let's see what happens. But for my second pick, I'm going to go back to a North Texas over, as we love to do here on this pod. This one is steep. It is 72, which is crazy high. Like you said, college football can get a little wonky. I love the other side of this matchup. They're playing UTSA. UTSA, really good offensive team, really bad defensive team. If you look at their schedule and some of their final scores, it makes sense why it's 72. It's really high, but I think North Texas only scoring 3 last week against Army was very surprising. I think they'll get that offense back on track against a much, much weaker UTSA defense. So this one's around a pick too. I kind of like North Texas to bounce back and win the game as a little small bonus play, but I think this one goes way over. I think you could see a 50-40 type over here. And so I love this one over 72, even though it's a lot. Don't get scared. Let's ride on another North Texas over.
I like it. Over 72. Man, I'd love to hit 100. We've had a couple games this year where we've hit 100 over. So you're saying there's a chance here of 100?
A chance, yes.
Okay, I like that. All right, that'll be a fun one, high scoring to watch. I got Nebraska, quite the opposite of high scoring, but plus 8.5 against Southern Cal. I just like Michigan. I pronounced USC dead a few weeks ago, and since then, I just don't think that they really care. I think Nebraska has been a little bit of a disappointment this year from where we thought they could be with the way their schedule shaped up, and they do have to go on the road here. But going from like New Jersey to LA is a little bit different than just Nebraska to LA. So not a huge travel issue. They're getting a touchdown and more, 8.5. And I think they can keep this thing within that. I think they could maybe even win it outright. Honestly, Nebraska, we'll see how it shapes up. A big chance for them, and I think that's just a little bit too many points there for where USC is right now and how they've been playing.
Love that one. Love it. I will get to my explanation a little bit later in the program. We'll tease if you stick around for the end.
Right.
Like Nebraska. But my third official play, I'm going to go Baylor, -2.5. Also another team in the Big 12 that's not really getting a lot of recognition because they were supposed to be so terrible, but they're actually playing some good ball. Dave Aranda looks like he should get his job back. I think they're around 5 wins or close to 6, so trying to fight for that bowl eligibility. But going up on the road against West Virginia. I was on West Virginia last week. Got the cover and outright win, but it was a little faulty. They had 2 defensive scores, didn't really move the ball that great on offense. So they got the win, which is great, but I think it was just a little misleading. So now you get a Baylor team coming off a bye. Baylor's really good at stopping the run, which is what West Virginia loves to do. So I think that's going to be a little bit of an area that West Virginia is going to struggle in this one. And again, I just look at Baylor. I think they're playing some good ball, got a good record, riding in some nice momentum, got a nice break with the bye. looking to finish out these last 3 weeks. So I wasn't going to buy Baylor early on in the year, but I think they're a sneaky good team that no one's really paying attention to. Give me the Baylor Bears, also short favorite, -2.5 at West Virginia.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Anytime we're laying points now against West Virginia after what they've done, every time I pick them this year, I'm good with that. So I have no issues with that one. Baylor laying 2.5 against the Mountaineers, mighty Mountaineers. Yeah, I think they'll probably end up crushing them. I'll take West Virginia, and then you'll win.
I like that. That would help me out. Yeah,
maybe I'll do that just to help out. My third one here, I'm just rolling with 3 for now. The rest will be posted Saturday morning. Michigan State +3 against Illinois. It's kind of a weird game. Illinois has been pretty good this year. They've exceeded expectations. They're a physical team. Michigan State had signs of being good. They kept a couple games close. They couldn't get the win against Michigan that we thought they were going to, and they just got crushed by Indiana a couple of weeks ago before bye week. But I don't know. Illinois, they're low scoring. This just seems like a prime spot for Michigan State to bounce back or win. Kind of similar teams. I think Illinois might be a little bit better, but I don't know. At home, I think they could keep this thing close. I think they could win it. It's actually in Illinois, but it doesn't matter. I think they're going to potentially win this game outright. Give me Michigan State.
I like that one as well. That was my second choice for the money line underdog parlay that we do at the end. So I got to definitely back you on that one. Love Michigan State. I just feel like they're very similar. So take the little +3, but I think they could easily win that game outright.
Yeah.
For my final one, touched on Boise State a little bit earlier on. We're actually going to fade them this week against San Jose State. If you listened last week, we had San Jose State in the money line parlay against Oregon State, won the game outright as 3.5 point underdogs. I think San Jose State's another. I'm trying to highlight some teams I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, but are playing some good ball or some good teams or better than maybe your assumptions were at the beginning of the year. So I just think this number is a little too high. I think Boise showed a little bit of vulnerability last week against Nevada. They were laying 24.5, only ended up winning that game by 7 or 10, I think it was. So I think Boise, I mean, they're crushing these teams. They know their bigger goal at hand is to get to the playoff. So they don't have to crush these teams. They just have to win each game, by just win it, and don't have to win it by margin and look good doing it. So I think this number is a little bit high. Now they're going to go on the road to San Jose State, which usually does not fill up crazy. So now it's like you don't get that juice. So I think it's a perfect spot here for San Jose State, who's coming off a nice win against Oregon State, to stay within the number. I don't know if they're going to win the game. I'm not saying they're going to beat Boise outright, but I think they keep this one close and definitely keep it within the 13.5. If you get a 14, that'd be great, but I like them to keep it within the 13.5.
I like it. San Jose State plus 13.5 on Saturday. A couple games there, Jared, wouldn't have had on my radar, so I'm glad you were pointing them out there. Maybe I could try to win some money and pick some of those ones that I'm not as familiar with. Yeah, should be a good one to watch there. All right, the rest of our picks will be out on Saturday morning per usual right here on the page. And then lastly here, we'll give out our PB parlay, which we've hit so far just one time this year. Chance to pick a couple underdogs and hit a home run here. I think we have a pretty good one this week, Mr. Paisley, to win back some of our losses there. I'm going with the Florida Gators to win outright against Brian Kelly and LSU. I just like it for a few reasons. I mean, it's back home in Florida. LSU just coming off of a humiliating loss. I feel like there's signs of death there in Death Valley. So, yeah, give me Florida. I think they're going to win outright in the Swamp. They're playing at the right time, and a chance for Florida to redeem themselves after what they did to me when I picked them to beat Texas A&M like week 3 or week 4 when they were unable to do that. So give me the Gators at plus 154 to win outright on Saturday.
Yeah, I like that one. I like them plus the points. I like that. I think Lagway should be back, the Florida quarterback, but even that third string, he got more reps. He didn't look great early against Texas, but actually scored some touchdowns late in that game and looked pretty good. So I'm with you. I think LSU's dead. I think they were showing some signs of quitting late in that game against Alabama. So now you got to go on the road, hostile environment. Florida looks like they're keeping Billy Napier around, so they have to play for. So Could be I kind of like that case as a nice upset pick there, Florida. And to make it real juicy, Case, we are going to go with the Cornhuskers. You gave them out +8. Give me them to win the game outright. I'll take them +260. I just am really selling USC. I like all the points you outlaid. I think they're also kind of dead, and they don't really want to keep playing football. Lincoln Riley could be on the outs. They had some high expectations. Now you're like maybe going to play in a bowl game, maybe not. I think Nebraska, I think because of Matt Rule, second year, he's looking to build something in this program. I don't think he's on the outs, or I don't think they're going to fire him. So I think he has a young team with a young quarterback, Dylan Raiola, who is getting better throughout the season, still not looking amazing. But I think this is just two opposite directions. We talked about like with the Florida LSU game. I think Nebraska has something to play for. They would love to get the bowl eligibility. Their head coach is trying to build a program there, trying to instill something with these young quarterbacks that he hopes to be there for the next 2 years. So I just kind of like this one. I'm with you. I think they'll keep it close, but for some reason, I'm just getting an itch that Nebraska is going to win this game outright and get a huge win for their program. That they haven't been great in some of these big time games. This really isn't a big time game, so I kind of like Nebraska here to get a crazy upset. And then if we parlay both of those together, Case, on DraftKings Sportsbook, you'll get out to +814. 814, which is our highest one of the year.
Love it.
We've been 1-1 the last 3 weeks. We've been very close. So we just both came together. We are so due. So if you want to tail it on the +814, a nice juicy payout there.
Yeah, maybe I won't bet it this week, only so the listeners can win, because that's the way it's been going. Maybe I'll take the opposites of it, so the listeners win it. But no, I like it. +814. That's a nice 100. Will get us 914 in returns there. So, all right, Mr. Paisley, any closing thoughts here before we close it out here, headed into week 12 already?
No, I think we covered a lot. Don't take it for granted. We only have a couple weeks of college football, but the NFL still has a lot going on. But only 3 weeks left, and we get into some playoffs, which should be exciting for college football.
Exciting. It's mid-November, Thanksgiving coming up. A lot of games mean a lot of more at this point in the season, and we will see you back here next Thursday, and feel free to check out our picks on the page on Saturday morning.